cameras are rolling, and action.
Music has clearly been practiced in the family, on all sides of the family, for many, many generations. I have a great-grandmother who trained as a classical pianist in Paris, and then my older brothers were both musicians. I moved to Paris after my A-levels, and I trained as a classical guitarist under a number of different teachers in harmony, music analysis, piano. I played saxophone briefly for a while, wrote music for friends who were filmmakers. This was all writing music purely for audio, and now I mostly write for live music. I respond really a lot to the sound of a place, and that affects the feel of a place. And I'm aware that a lot of my expectations of sound determined by the fact that I grew up so much with music being performed outside, and also with sounds that are very particular, like the steel band sounds or vocal sounds of choirs everywhere. Maybe that's the palette that I'm constantly trying to recreate. I can't think of any other way of expressing myself. It's a very selfish desire to say, this is what I have to say, and this is how I say it. Ideally, the perfect sound should sound as natural as possible, and that is, for me, perfection. That's the sort of situation that I'm always trying to achieve with a new work of mine. For example, in relation to a piece of mine, any of my works, a perfect sound is a sound where the trajectory of the piece is clear. Instruments that have a leading role are heard. The color and the palette of the rest of the ensemble is very clear, is very distinct, and the overall musical journey becomes clear, and that's very, very difficult to achieve. We have to be able to distinguish each of those sounds. At least I have to be able to distinguish them so that I can be sure that the piece is being played as I've written it. I think as musicians, because we're so attuned to sound, and because we have to be attuned to sound to be able to play properly together or to function together in that musical world, we do end up being very sensitive to the tiniest changes. So as soon as there is something that we find we're hearing less clearly or less distinctly, your attention is immediately alerted, and you will immediately start to find ways to compensate, whatever those ways are. I've met and worked with a couple of musicians who have experienced significant degradation of their hearing to the point where they're wearing hearing aids. It hasn't prevented them from being involved in the full and total music experience, and continuing their work as musicians and composers. So the more help that we can get, obviously the better.